All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this webinar. I'm Kimmy Wall, Public Information Officer for Rancho California Water District. Tonight's webinar will run pretty informally, open house style for the next hour. We'll begin with some information about the shutdown from our engineering and operations team, a bit of info about the communications for the shutdown, and then we'll open it to questions from attendees. And then if we have extra time at the end, the Rancho Water team will stay online until 8 p.m. to chat with any latecomers to this webinar. You'll see that there are options at the bottom of your screen to either raise your hand, chat with the panelists, or ask a question in the Q&A section. I'll be moderating these and we'll get through as many questions as we can. Also, if you're calling into this meeting, enter *9 on your phone to raise your hand, and I'll call on you when it's your turn to speak. So just a quick introduction to recap what you may already know. Rancho Water will be conducting a necessary water shutdown in the Sandia Creek area from next Monday, June 14th at 10 p.m. in the evening until approximately 6 a.m. in the morning on Wednesday, June 16th, about 36 hours. I'd like to introduce a few of my teammates that have joined the meeting. Eva Plaisir is Rancho Water's Assistant General Manager, Engineering and Operations. Jake Wiley, our Engineering Manager, and Chris Carlisle, our Construction Inspector. They're going to give a quick presentation to discuss why these valve replacements are necessary, the areas that will be affected, and they'll also describe in detail the timeline for this type of construction. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Jake Wiley. Jake, over to you.
Good evening. Is my screen up? Okay, great. So like Kimmy said, we're here tonight to talk about the Sandia Creek valve replacements. And just to give you a quick overview of where we're talking about, this is really the construction zone. Stretches from Sandia Creek Drive and Carancho intersection down to Sandia Creek and El Prado Road. And if you're out on Tuesday, this is where these intersections are where you're going to see the actual work occurring. You'll see traffic control on the road as you approach the intersections, and crews there in both intersections conducting the valve replacements. So what is it that we're doing? At the intersection of Sandia Creek and El Prado, we're going to be replacing 7 isolation valves. They range in diameter from 8 to 24 inch. And also, in addition to those 7 up at Carancho Road and Sandia Creek, we're going to be replacing 1 24-inch valve. We have an outside contractor that'll be doing the work in Sandia Creek and El Prado, and RCWD crews will be doing the work in Sandia Creek and Carancho, the 1 24-inch valve. Why do we put these isolation valves in? Really, the isolation valves are just for that. They're for isolating sections of our distribution system so that when we have to shut it down, whether that's planned like this event or unplanned, we have manageable sections of pipeline to deal with. Pipelines have to be drained and brought back in service once work's completed. So the isolation valves are really critical to the ongoing maintenance and repair of our system. And so just going to take you through a little bit of the timeline of what you're going to see, like Kimmy said, from Monday night to Wednesday morning. And well, even beyond that, because first thing is pre-construction activities. And what we'd like to do is actually pre-dig the sites. So before we do the work, we actually open up the hole. So this is before any shutdown occurs. Actually, we've been doing that this week, opening up sites, really so there's no surprises. We know exactly what's there. We know we have everything we need to complete the work. And really, we're ready to go. When it's time to shut the valves and start draining the lines, we're ready to go. From there, it's just that our crews, our operations team goes out, we close the valves that need to be closed and dewater the pipelines. On a large shutdown as this one, and I'm going to show you the impact area, kind of this shutdown area in a couple of slides here. This is an extended duration. It's about a 6 to 8 hour window to actually get those valves turned and drain the line. It's a large amount of water that will be conducting the draining at several locations within the area. From there, traffic control obviously set up. We want our crews to be safe in the intersection, and from there we remove the traffic plates and begin the work. And really, that's taking the old valves out, putting the new valves in. And I'm going to show you some photos just to kind of give you some perspective on what that looks like. Once those valves are in place, everything's welded up, coatings are applied, then we begin the process of bringing the system back online. The system is flushed. Once we open the system, we want to flush it to make sure anything that could have possibly got in there is gone. And flushed, tested, make sure everything's leak tight, and disinfected. So we test the water quality, make sure the water's safe, clean before we turn the water back on to you. Once that's happened, that's it. The water service is restored. And again, really a lot of this timeline, I know we're talking about an extended duration. It's really about the preparing for and then after the work. It's 6 to 8 hours to drain, and we're thinking about 6 to 8 hours again to flush and disinfect and test and bring it back online. So good. That's a good portion of that timeline. Just to give you again some perspective on what this looks like. This is a job that was actually up on the hill, a valve replacement job. So you can see the kind of these are the types of pipes we're dealing with. Fairly large diameter, good size valves. It requires heavy equipment, large crews to conduct this work. So these are kind of the first steps: the uncovering the pipe. You see the shoring in the background, removing the old section, getting that out of there, and then from there, this is putting the new section back in place. So you can see the valves here wrapped. Everything's welded back up. We coat everything, make sure it's protected from corrosion, and then when we bring it back online, and then this is kind of the last step. Obviously, we're going to backfill behind the pipeline. We repave everything and button everything up to bring the street back in service. So who's impacted by this? We've got about 150 services, which for this area is it's a large area of land. Obviously, large properties up there. So 150 service covers a pretty large area. These here in pink, those are all the services that'll be shut down. So if you're on tonight and you're one of those dots, you received a letter and a phone call, and you're within that shutdown area. And again, we're going to start on Monday night. So Monday at 10 o'clock is when we're going to start the shutdown. So that's going to be us closing the valves and beginning that process of draining the pipelines. So we're starting that night. So all day Monday, we'll be prepping, but the water service will be on all day Monday up until the evening. Our estimate for water service restoration, 6 a.m. Wednesday. So we're going to work nonstop from Monday when our operators get out there to shut the pipeline down. Construction Tuesday during the day. That's all the valve replacements. And then we estimate that that's going to go into the probably into the early evening hours, and then starting that process of bringing the lines back into service. And we're estimating back into service by 6 a.m. You get surprises on these jobs sometimes. Things don't fit right. Things happen that can extend the timelines, but this is our best estimate, and we're going to do everything we can to try to beat this. But we always like to give you a nice timeline on it. So that's the impacted area. Why are we doing this now? So just a little bit of background on this. So we actually issued a construction contract last year for multiple valve replacements across the district that this contractor was working on. This is actually the last section that we were doing. This is the end of that job. But we had scheduled 2 shutdowns for April actually to do this. So we were going to do the work in El Prado and Sandia Creek in 2 phases. And the reason we were doing it in 2 phases was for a less impactful shutdown. Get one valve cluster replaced, a smaller area that's shut down, again, more manageable, and then come back for a second shutdown, but again, much less impactful because now we've got those valves we can use and do that work. The issue being on April 21st, we went to shut the system down, and the less impactful shutdown that we had planned was less than successful. We couldn't get the system tight enough to actually complete the work. So water was passing by the valve. One of the main ones was a 24-inch that we're going to replace with our crews. And so it was going to require us to move back to the shutdown that you just saw, but unplanned. So now we would have had to start this timeline without notifying really 75% of the customers that would be impacted. We had already been out there all day. So safety was a concern as well. We've got a contractor that's already been on site for 12, 14 hours. Now we're going to work into the next day probably to get the system shut down. We decided at that point we needed to pull back. So in essence, we've been planning this shutdown since April 22nd because we realized the urgency of having to do this work. With our inability to fully isolate this area, really kind of puts us at risk. It puts us at a level of service that I would call unacceptable, because at any time we could have an unplanned event, a leak, a break. It happens. We have a lot of pipeline, and anywhere in this area, now we'd be looking at an unplanned shutdown, the same magnitude as what we're looking at right now. So Rancho Water kind of best approach to replace it all at once, give everybody ample notice so we can prepare. And so that's what we've been doing. And next Monday night is kind of the plan. The contractor is planning on having 2 crews out there. So having 2 crews, 1 on each of the valve locations. And again, Rancho will be working up at the other site. So the work will be happening simultaneously to try to keep that timeline down as much as we can. And again, this is just, it's really a critical investment to ensure that that level of service that we provide to the area is really top notch. And this, having valves that unable to isolate the system, it's unacceptable for us. So really need to do this work, and it really needs to happen now. Every day that we don't do it, we're at risk. So we want to take care of this as soon as possible, and that's what we've been gunning for. So that's kind of the overview of what we're going to do and why we're going to do it. I'm going to turn it back over to Kimmy to talk about some of the outreach and other things that we're doing.
Thanks, Jake. So first of all, we understand that this is never a good time to do this. And, we appreciate everybody's patience and support as we kind of do this work that, just as you've heard from Jake, it has to be done now. So to ease a little bit of the pain on this, we are going to have complimentary bottled water. It's going to be available in cases out kind of by your mailboxes if you know the area. It's on the corner of Sandia Creek Drive and Via Vaquero, the intersection there. You can kind of see on this picture where the mail truck is. We're going to be directly across the street. You'll see it. We're going to have a Rancho Water tent out there, and there'll be some of our cars. And so you can swing by at any point during this shutdown and pick up a case of water for your residents. We'll be out there Monday, late afternoon to the evening from 6 p.m. until 8 p.m. And then the following day on Tuesday, June 15th from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. So come on by and see us. We'll have our public information staff will be out there handing out water. Also, I'll say in this area, before you switch slides there, Jake, we are going to have a portable restroom out in this area as well. It should be placed right over by the mailboxes. So if it comes to it and you decide that you can't use the restroom at your house, you are welcome to come use ours. We'll have a porta potty out there for anybody's use. And then communications, you've probably received most of this, but we did try to do a longer lead time than usual for our regular shutdowns, just because this is going to be an extended time period. So we had the web page posted on June 1st, which is probably where you found most of the information to come to this Zoom meeting, but it is ranchowater.com/water shutdown. The notification letter went out June 2nd. We had door or gate hangers, depending on your property, come through on the 8th. There was also an e-blast that if we have your email on file, it came to your email on June 8th. You should have gotten a call from our customer service team probably on the 9th. And then this webinar tonight, and then you'll also get a reminder text or call on June 14th, which is Monday. And so that is for anybody that is affected by this shutdown. The website is going to be updated during construction. So if Jake or the rest of the team gets back to us and says the stuff is moving faster, or we need to put some kind of update so that the residents know, we will put it on that webpage, that water shutdown webpage. And there will also be an alert on the homepage of the website. So you can just go there. You don't have to go find that water shutdown page. You'll just see the alert button right at the top of the webpage. You can click on that and get the same information. You can also call our 24/7 construction hotline, which is the number there you see, 951-296-6904, or email us at construction@ranchowater.com, and we will get back to you just as soon as possible with any information that you need about this shutdown. So with that, that's kind of the end of our formal presentation. Again, there's the website, ranchowater.com/water shutdown for any updates. I think at this time, Eva, did you have anything that you wanted to chime in at this point to say?
I just want to say thank you to our customers in that area for the patience and the understanding of the necessity of this work. We very much appreciate it. We are your partners in your water delivery, so we want to make sure that you get very high quality water in the future. And unfortunately, this work is very much necessary to continue that delivery. So very much appreciate your patience and your understanding. So if you have any questions or concerns, please call the numbers or reach out directly to Jake, myself, or Kimmy. So thank you very much for participating and listening to this webinar.
Thanks, Eva. So just a reminder, if you are on the line with us and you would like to say something, if you have a question, you can either raise your hand, which is at the bottom of your screen. You'll see the raise hand button. You can click that. We'll call on you and you can speak. There's also the chat box, and that will come to the three of us panelists, or you can put in a question in the Q&A section and we can answer it that way. At this point, I would like to, sorry, if you're on the phone, it's *9 to raise your hand. On the phone is *9, and then we'll see that your hand is raised. We do have a few questions, Jake and Eva, that we've been getting just from when customer service was calling people, that I've been hearing that maybe we can address for people that weren't able to make it to this webinar, that we can just kind of go over quickly. So the portable restroom we kind of talked about. What would you guys say for folks in the area that have a lot of crops that maybe need to be watered? Would you say water them ahead of time, store water? What would we tell those folks?
Well, they probably know better than us, to be honest with you, about watering their crops. But obviously that's why we want to give as much notice as we could to allow that to occur. That's why we're doing it. We're waiting way into Monday before we get that going. So yeah, I think we're just asking them to use their best practice to obviously, yeah, if they water ahead of time, whatever they need to do, but really just giving everybody the knowledge that plan for this window. That's what we're doing for them. The farm managers probably can advise much better than I can.
Okay, great. Kind of along that same lines, for a lot of the residents in this area have animals, livestock, or horses and goats and chickens, all nut up in the area because we have a lot of property up in here. So as somebody who owns horses myself, I mean, I would, and you guys can chime in, I would say that, kind of like we were saying with the crops, we want to store up as much water as you can ahead of time. So knowing that the water is going to go down at 10 o'clock at night, probably want to get out there and fill the water buckets and see what other kind of storage facilities you have for water leading up to this shutdown. Again, we're looking at 36 hours. So if we can get through Tuesday, by Wednesday morning, we're looking at having water back on to refill buckets. Is there any other kind of information or advice you would give people with animals in the area?
No, I think that's it. I mean, obviously storing water and making sure you're prepared for that duration or even beyond would be best.
Okay, sounds good. We did get a question about what kind of testing will be done after the shutdown is over before the water comes back through. Do you have any more information about what kind of testing we do, the extent of it, and is the water safe to use right out of the gate as soon as it comes back to your tap?
Yeah, that's I talked a little bit about this in the bullets, but obviously we tested to make sure the system's tight, right? There's no leaks where we've done the work and everything's tight. But then water quality, of course, as we're flushing, we're actually continuously sampling for chlorine residual, and we want to have a positive chlorine residual. That means there's no nothing bad in the water. The water's safe, and so once the water's clean and we've got positive chlorine residual, and we test this around the system to make sure that's true of everywhere. We do that before the water goes back into service. So that's those are the key issues there.
And what a positive a chlorine residual means for us that the water is disinfected and it's good to drink.
Perfect. So residents shouldn't have to flush their system for a few minutes after it turns back on. They can use it right away.
They should be able to use it right away. Yes, we flush it on our end just to make sure we're only opening up a small portion of the system, but even still, we make sure that again, everything's clean before we fill all the pipes back up.
Great. Okay. We do have a question from Bob that just chimed in. Are you going to provide alternative housing if the project extends beyond your projected timeline? The project is going to be a real problem for families with small children. At this point, I don't think we have plans for alternative housing for residents. Correct me if I'm wrong, Eva.
Now, yes, there's currently no plans for alternative housing. So, we try to do these as infrequently as we can, and we will try to be as short as we possibly can. If there's anything that would extend it past the 36 hours, we will be updating all the affected connections as soon as we know.
Perfect. And then from our side, from public information, we'll be sending out notices also as soon as everything is complete and the water's turned back on. We will most likely get a call or a text to let you know that your water service is back and available. Can we discuss the fire implications in the area? Because obviously with water shutdowns, there may not be as much water available if something crops up on, Tuesday morning that we need fire access. I know we have a partnership with CAL FIRE. Can you guys discuss a little bit how we're working through that?
Sure, and this is a little atypical for our shutdowns. Typically our shutdowns are, again, smaller in nature, kind of contained within a smaller area. This is larger than typical. So in this case, we have reached out to our local CAL FIRE representative. They've actually distributed the map of the shutdown area to all the local fire captains and of course internally with CAL FIRE. So they are fully aware of what's happening on Monday night into Tuesday. And on top of that, when we showed the big map that had the shutdown area, the one positive here, there's a little silver lining, is a large portion of that, approximately half of that area, actually has parallel lines that serve a separate pressure zone. And so that line will still be live, and there'll be live hydrants for it, like everything along that south end, which is via what is the name of that street? Well, at the very south end, and then coming up Carancho from the south, that's all paralleled by another pipeline. So we will have live hydrants along there. It's really Sandia Creek that will be dry, and then just north of there along Carancho, those will be the areas that are. And so obviously we're very cognizant of keeping track of what's going on around us, and obviously the fire department is well aware of what's going on too. So those are the kind of coordination efforts and things that we've taken kind of special for this one, just because of the size of it.
Perfect. So there are hydrants in the area. If something goes down, would they still have helicopter access for water drops?
Absolutely. Typically they use our recycled water ponds when, like when we had the fire over Bear Creek-ish area. And our ponds have plenty of water right now. The ponds are right here at the base of the hill. We've got plenty of storage. So yes, of course, that would still probably the most likely attack on any kind of a fire would be from the air too. So that's obviously still in play.
Kimmy, if you remember a few weeks ago, there was a small fire up above the hill above the the Temecula wastewater treatment plant. And that's how the fire departments chose to fight it. They did not use our system. They chose to fight it with an aerial attack. So that is still fully available to the fire departments. And our ponds are full.
Great. Okay, let's keep them that way. All right, we have another question from Bob. Can you explain in more detail why the original smaller project didn't work and why the same problems will not occur with this project?
Sure. Yeah, that's really the issue being the valves that we were shutting to isolate this area. They just wouldn't fully close. They wouldn't fully seat. That's why we've added the scope of including that 24-inch valve up at Carancho as a replacement as well, because that was one of the main culprits. It was our operations crew could audibly hear that water was passing by that valve, and that's a big line that's putting water down there. So we just couldn't get it slowed down enough to get the area dry enough to work. The reason this one has much less risk of that, in essence, we're going back to the two reservoirs. We got El Prado Reservoir that sits to the north, and Ace Bowen that sits to the east, and we're actually just shutting down those at the reservoir. Obviously, there's other valves within there that'll be shut down as well, but that provides a high level of certainty that we can get the site dry. It's just going to take a long time. That's really part of why it's taking so long, because there's just a lot of area to drain. But we have positive closure on those valves. And so I see the next question too. Have we tested them? And yes, I mean, really, we tested a lot of them as part of the failed shutdown. So we had parts of the system isolated, but then just a couple key locations where we couldn't do it. We were confident if we could have dropped back at that point and done the shutdown. But like I said before, we were already in 12, 14 hours. Now you're starting that process. So it just would have been, again, to 75% of the people that would have been impacted by that shutdown, zero notice and this extended time frame that we're talking about. So, and then of course the safety concern with having a contractor on site with no sleep for 2 days or whatever. So this allowed us to really plan this one out, knowing what we know now, that there's a couple other valves out there that just wouldn't positively shut. So yes, we have a high level of confidence in doing this. It's just going to take time. That's what we needed.
Well, this is kind of what we're trying to mitigate for the future, right? That if something happened and it was an emergency and we weren't able to shut this down, it would be an unplanned long shutdown.
Absolutely. And that's so having these valves, these brand new valve clusters in these key locations really sets us up for the next, life of a valve, maybe 20, 25 years of good life, really sets us up for the future to have, again, a high level of service in this area. So that's what we're after for a day of pain. And I mean, I understand the concerns. It's rough, but like Eva said, we're trying to partner with you to make sure, man, long term we can meet your needs.
Great. I do have another question that had come in from a customer as far as turning off any kind of regulators at the street. Do they need to do anything at their properties ahead of this shutdown, like turning off any regulators or valves? You're on mute, Jake.
There we go. There was a question about the regulators in the street. We won't be adjusting those. We're going to leave them just where they are. They're there to protect the meters from high pressure. So we're not going to adjust anything on our side. Not knowing what people have on their side of the pipeline, because that could be anything. You could have a pumping system that hits your if you've got a grove or whatever. Not knowing, we really, again, kind of leave it to the customer. Hey, if you need positive pressure to operate that, you're going to want to shut that down. Obviously, we're not going to go on people's property and do anything on their property. That's their property. But yeah, and again, the notice and those kind of things. That's really what we're after, is for people to kind of take a hard look. Hey, this is my system. What works without pressure and what doesn't work without pressure, and make sure you're kind of buttoned up on that side.
Perfect. So anything that you have on your property, that's your personal property, that requires water pressure or pumps, you should probably take care of that ahead of time. So it's not trying to pull water that's not there.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Okay, that is all the questions I have at this point for you all. Is there anything else that you would like to cover that ideas, frequently asked questions that you can think of that have come up? And also for any of our callers, if you are interested in asking more questions, we are happy to be here for another 25 minutes. So please ask any more questions. Again, if you're calling in, it's *9 to raise your hand and then you can speak. And Bob had a question. How do you plan to mitigate the impacts to affected families if the project extends beyond the timeline specified?
Well, I mean, we talked a little bit about that, just obviously the notification. You know, if things don't go as planned, there'll be, you know, we're gonna notify you as soon as that occurs. Again, you know, we're gonna have the bottled waters out there. We're gonna have all those things in place, really, you know, along all those hours. Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, that's what we've got. We're providing the water, but notification so you can act on whatever's occurring. Again, we are planning and we've got, you know, we're doing everything we can to make sure that we can fit in that time frame. But that's, you know, that's the best we can do.
And we have every expectation this is going to be done by 6 a.m. Wednesday morning. I mean, that's the timeline. So, I mean, the engineers and the inspectors have all kind of come together to come up with this timeline that we feel is a reasonable one to get water back and moving. Great.
And we've looked at, I mean, there's a lot of things we're looking at too. You know, if certain pieces get done early and we can bring water service back to a portion of the area, we're going to do that. And those are things, I mean, we've got our operations group. I mean, they've got that kind of a plan to, you know, again, try to beat that timeline. That's what we're after is try to beat that timeline. But we just want to make sure that everybody's prepared, that whatever your situation is. And, you know, a lot of people have a lot of different situations up there, you know, like we've talked about. There's animals, there's crops, and we understand the makeup and the diversity of the area. So that's what we're trying to do is, hey, this is coming. We've got to do it. If we didn't have to do it, we wouldn't do it. But like I said, every day that we don't, it's risk, and we've got to mitigate that. So that's kind of where we're at. But of course, we're gonna work our tails off to try to beat that timeline and keep people notified of whatever's going on.
Perfect. And you said the crews are going to be out there all night long. There's no break time. They're going to be working 24/7 to get this done.
Nonstop work. We're again, and that was part of the planning, you know, as we're scheduling this thing, to put on the contractor, hey, we need 2 crews, not just 1 crew, we need 2 crews so that work can happen simultaneously. We're bringing our crews on because we want to get that 1 valve done, but that's a little much to try to, now you got 3, you know, you're really talking about 3 full crews up there. So we pitched in on this shutdown to get up there and get one of these valves replaced too. So that's, I mean, we've been, you know, again, since April 22nd, planning this thing out. And so we have, you know, every intention to get it done.
And I would say there's been so much planning that has gone into it. And if you drive out there, there's already work occurring that we really don't anticipate. The 30 hours is, I would say, it's the worst case scenario.
Great. So question for you, since we have all these big construction trucks coming in, a lot of road work happening, how do you see this impacting any traffic in the area? Are there going to be lane closures? Are the trucks and other things going to be taking up space on the road, or do you not anticipate much of that?
Well, I mean, most of the activity is going to be right in those intersections. That's where you're going to see actually live work happening, is right in those intersections. There will be traffic control and flagmen, you know, bringing people around the area. So there could be traffic impacts. I mean, you know, you might see some backups at those intersections, depending on the time of day or you know, the traffic load at that time. But that's, yeah, we will keep traffic going. but it'll probably cut down to one lane at those intersections, and we'll be directing people through. So it could slow down a little bit.
Okay, so no full detours having to go around and circle back or anything
No,
like that?
we're planning on flagging people around.
Perfect. Okay. Great. Okay, well, I'm not at this point seeing any more questions. We will give it another little bit here and see if more questions come in or if we have any other folks join us. Jake, do you want to bring up that final slide just so people know where to go to find more information and updates?
Sure. Okay, hold on just a second.
Sorry, I think I have it too. If you want me to, oh, there you go.
There you go.
You got it. Great. Okay. So yeah, just a reminder that during the shutdown, if anything comes up that's new that we hear from the team out there, we will update it on our website, ranchowater.com/water shutdown. We'll have updates during the construction. If there's anything that needs to go out specifically to the residents, we will have information either texted or called out to those folks so they get it directly if you can't make it onto the internet to check this out. You can find it on the water shutdown page or right on the home page of our website. There will be an alert button towards the top of the page. You can click on that and get information or go straight to the water shutdown page and get more information. Okay, well, we'll give it a few minutes and we'll come back with any other answers or questions that come up. So I think we'll give this maybe 2 or 3 more minutes just in case anybody else jumps on. But then we'll make this video available too on our website and on YouTube in case anybody wants to watch it back and get some of these answers maybe before they have to call in and try to find the answer this way. Maybe this will answer some of the questions.
Do I get royalties if it goes viral?
Only if we hit 1 million views.
I can see it. Only staff is on now.
And I'll take you out to lunch, Jake. Okay, well, I think at this point, we've kind of answered a lot of questions, gone over quite a few details for this shutdown. So I want to thank Jake and Eva and Chris, who was here in the background, helping us out with this webinar. And hopefully this answered some questions for everybody. Again, we thank you so much for your patience, for our residents who are going to be affected by this. We hope you understand that it's necessary at this time. We're going to work as quickly as we possibly can and around the clock to get this done and get your water back on. So again, join us at ranchowater.com for updates during the construction, and we'll hopefully get this done for you quickly. Thank you so much, everybody.